Kaycee had an amazing blog post that I read a couple weeks back, and she was talking about something difficult that she went through with her mom, which is, I think, some of our biggest fears is when, like, a direct family member has a health issue, you know? And I was wondering if you could share with our viewers just a little bit about, like, what kind of mindset you had during that time and how you were able to take those baby steps to get through and survive that situation.
Absolutely. So basically a little bit about my family. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, and most of my family is there except for myself and one of my brothers. I also have two other brothers that are in Ohio and my mom. And so at the top of 2016, we found that my mom fell really, really ill. She went into work, was completely jaundiced, and rushed down to the emergency room. We found that she had liver failure, she had gallbladder failure, and she also was diagnosed loosely with 3 different autoimmune diseases. Anyway, the year progressed and my mom's health declined rapidly. She lost 75 pounds and just became skin and bones and slept 24/7. She sipped on Gatorade and that was it. And then throughout this year of 2016, she was being tested so that she could get a liver transplant because that would be the only possible option to save her life. And it was a lot of ups and downs. It was a lot of, oh, she might actually have cervical cancer. Oh, she needs to get all of her teeth pulled, which she did. She has like this wrong with her heart, so we might not be able to give it to her. So there was constantly, like, every time there was a test done, there was a setback that said, well, maybe she won't be getting a liver. Maybe she's too sick. So it was a massive roller coaster emotionally. And having suffered with depression years ago, like kind of in adolescence and young adulthood, like relatively recent, of course, all of that's coming back to me. And it's hard for me to get up the next day. But again, all I had to worry about was this moment and press forward step at a time. And fast forward to December, she's finally done with all the testing for transplant options, and she's added to the list for transplants, and that's a national list. So many people on the list for transplants and so many people that are waiting years, months and years for a transplant. And 2 days after my mom is added to the list, she gets an offer for a liver. And that doesn't happen. That in itself was the biggest miracle and answer to prayer that I could ever even imagine. I didn't think that that was going to even happen. And during the transplant process, you do possibly have dry runs, and a dry run means that you have an offer for a liver, but either it goes to the person who is more sick than you, higher up on the list, but they always call in multiple people in case that person's too sick, can't get the liver, or in case it doesn't fit, or it's not a match, or they turn it down. So my mom went in, she was in the hospital for about like 48 hours waiting to see. No food, no water, no nothing. And I was here in LA during that time, freaking out. I did not go to work, and I actually had a friend come over and stay with me overnight as my mom was waiting in the hospital, and we stayed up all night long, prayed all night long, listened to worship music, tried to be still and just trust and give it all into the hands of someone greater than I, because I couldn't deal with that. And I knew my capability was sit, pray, wait, and trust. And that's what I did. And I'm so fortunate to be able to have that friend that was there comforting me in that time, speaking bold prayers, speaking life and truth over my mom, knowing that it's possible for her life to be saved. And unfortunately, it didn't end up that way. At this time, she didn't get the transplant, and I had 2 options. I had, okay, well, either give up because you'd spent all night fasting and praying and trusting that God would do this, and it didn't work out that way, and I could get mad, or I could continue to trust and believe that things were going to be okay, and that there was an answer and a bigger picture that I wasn't seeing, and I chose that route. I didn't get mad, I didn't get angry. I said, okay, next day, let's do it again. And so a couple weeks went by, and I go home for Christmas, and it's December 27th, and we take my mom to the hospital. She has 3 doctor's appointments that day, and in preparing for her to go to the doctor, she couldn't, at this point, like in her illness, she couldn't stand up on her own. She couldn't sit up from laying down on her own. She had 0 energy. She had lost almost all of her hair. Her teeth were gone because they had to be pulled, and she was lifeless. She wasn't herself anymore. And I saw her prepare to get ready to go to the doctor, and I broke down in tears. I ran downstairs to go get her clothes for her to change into, and I hit the bottom of the stairwell, and I fell to my knees, and I cried, and I cried, and I was so mad. I was so angry. I said, I don't understand, God, why you're doing this. My mom had been through suffering after suffering after suffering that I would never wish upon anybody. And I didn't understand why she was suffering so much. I didn't understand why this last year she just depleted and she became a shrivel of what she used to be. I didn't understand why she completely lost all life. And I just fell to my knees and I cried and I was angry and I said, God, I know you could do this. I don't know why we're waiting. I don't know why I'm seeing innocent suffering. I don't understand it and it breaks my heart. But I know that that's not you. I know that you can do this. And I said, if you would do it today, do it today. And I cried and I cried and I screamed and I'm sobbing on the floor of the basement. And I get up, I go get her clothes, we go to the hospital, day by day, step by step, and at this point, we're second doctor's appointment down. Right before the third doctor's appointment, the transplant coordinator comes back out and says, I have a liver for your mom.
Yeah. Oh. Chills, right?
Spoiler alert, this one's real. So after a lot of hesitation, she accepted, and we wheeled her down to get admitted. The beauty of this was that if she had gotten the liver the first time, my brother and myself that live in California wouldn't have been there with her. But this time, everybody was there at the hospital with her. Everybody was by her side at the most crucial point in her life that she'd ever experienced. We were all there, and God knew that. And that's why, despite the fact that I stood up praying and fasting and crying and singing praises to God at that first offer, it wasn't right, because he knew that we wanted to be there. He knew that we needed to be there, and he wanted us to be together for that. And though it wasn't what I had in mind, it was the better picture. It was the better plan. And so on December 28th, after hours of waiting and uncertainty of, is this liver going to take? Is she going to be able to get it? Is it going to fit? All this stuff. At this point, too, her body had been so toxic that she'd gone crazy in the mind, so she wasn't speaking anything that made any sense to anybody, which is really hard because when you don't know if you're going to see your mom anymore, if she's just going to not make it through the surgery, you can't really speak to her and say, I love you, and she understand what you're saying. And that was the hardest thing, is that not only was she physically depleting, mentally she was no longer there at all, because there just had been too many toxins to her brain and she was damaged that way. But the beauty of the situation is that she was wheeled off into surgery at 6 p.m. on the 28th. At 8 o'clock, they began surgery, and my brothers and I waited outside in a waiting room with like a little pager where they would give us updates. And so throughout the entire night, we stood up. I sat there praying and reading my Bible and knowing that things were going to be okay. That even if I got worried and I got anxious, I reminded myself, my spirit within me reminded myself, hey, it's going to be okay. You know it's going to be okay. I know you're freaking out, but you know it's going to be okay. And I spoke that over myself through the 6-hour surgery. And then surgeon comes out with fresh surgery hands, gesturing to me that the surgery was fine and that my mom was okay. And then she went right to intensive care because she was so sick that they didn't necessarily know if she was going to make it through the surgery, but she was going to need a lot of eyes on her, a lot of care afterwards. And so she was in intensive care for a week. The hardest roller coaster of my life. She was in and out. She was unresponsive for the most part. The first time I walked into intensive care and I saw her, I passed out within 2 minutes, maybe. Seeing her fully on the ventilator, seeing her completely lifeless, knowing the work that had just been done. She'd got a liver, amazing, but this still wasn't her. And the next time I made it 3 minutes, the next time I made it 5 minutes, and it was step by step. Every time I went in there and saw my mom, who was nearly lifeless, and I didn't know if she was going to pull through. I didn't know if she was going to be able to come off the ventilator and breathe the next day or not. And it was day at a time. It was, I only did 2 minutes today, but I'm going to go again tomorrow because it meant that much to me. And I went the next day, and it was 3, and it was 5, and it was 10. And then surely I was able to sit there beside her the entire day, whether or not she was responsive to me. Again, praying, speaking life, singing over her, calming her when she would wake up and be agitated because she had tubes and wires everywhere. And I got stronger through it because I kept going in, because I kept saying, this is important to me, and I love this woman, and I want to be here. And because of that love in my heart, I endured, and I went back every day, no matter how hard it was, to sit there and see my mom, not knowing if she was going to wake up. And then one day she woke up and she was completely herself. She could say that she was on this floor in the hospital and this doctor, and she was just like wicked smart. We had no idea where it came from. And so they pulled the ventilator out after her operation. And I don't even know this woman. I don't know. I'm sure she's watching this. I don't know you. She just goes and enjoys life now. And I know, and I feel so good that I can let her be, and I don't have to be there to take care of everything, because everything worked out just fine. And I can go back to doing my life and honoring her by doing the things that I do well, doing my passions and all those talents that she knows I have and has seen in me since I was 3 years old. I can go out and do them because she's okay. Whew.
Aww.
That was real, guys. No, that's like the first time I actually realized that like, yeah, you know how when you talk, sometimes you talk into yourself stuff that you never processed before. 7 months post-op, and like, she's still healing, but it's now making me realize that I can go on and do the things that I was afraid to do before, because she's healthy, she's good now. God's good, man. So yeah, now I'm back in LA, and this is life, and I'm not worrying about my mom because she's thriving, and she's a stud, like a woman stud, obviously, but she's a babe. That's what I mean to say. And yeah, it's just a testimony to the fact that, like, there's gonna be suffering, there's gonna be hard things, there's gonna be obstacles, there's gonna be things that stop you from reaching your dream and your goals, but it's day by day, it's step at a time. It's not worrying about what's not in front of you yet. It's not freaking out about things that you're worrying about that haven't happened or haven't come to pass yet. It's dealing with what's right in front of you, and if you're faithful with the little things in front of you, you get big things coming up next. So I'll let you know when those happen.
I think it's so powerful too, because I remember listening to a Les Brown speech, and he was talking about the importance of not parking. And it's interesting because it's like you said, you had that decision to make of, do I continue to trust or do I just get angry? And I think, there's so many times, like you said, we all go through suffering, we go through hard times, some severely more painful than others. But every time that we do, we're faced with that decision. Okay, am I going to stop? Am I going to lock myself in my room and just, create this lie in my brain that God doesn't care about me, that I can't win, that the government's out to get me, whatever your specific lie is that you want to believe that causes you to just give up, and giving up could look like different things for different people. It could be just allowing yourself to, like you said, not go after your dream. It could be just allowing yourself to not leave your room, to go in depression, to wall everybody out of your life. Whatever that giving up looks like in your life, so many people choose that because of pain and because of fear that the pain will happen again. And instead of that, you chose to continue to put one foot in front of the other, to continue to pursue your dreams when the timing was right, and to continue to live with trust and faith, even though you had gone through something very difficult, And I think that is the most important thing that we want to get across to you guys, is that whatever you are struggling with, even if you don't have the energy to sprint or run in the right direction, if you just keep putting one foot in front of the other, things are going to heal and they are going to get better. And eventually, over time, you're going to end up in a beautiful place. But if you park or you give up or you allow that fear to take over your mind and you just perseverate on it, you are not going to experience the fullness that was to be your life. That's it. Thank you guys so much. We hope you enjoyed our dance. Can we give Kaycee a hug? I know you're hugging her with us.
Group hug.
I love you guys.
I love you.
Thank
All
you
are
for
the
sharing.
best. Absolutely. All day, every day.
Bye, guys. Have a great week.